Today, I'm going to show you how to develop basic skill and understanding in pivot table. Pivot table is a very powerful tool to calculate, summarize, and analyze your data. In my business analytical rule, I have to generate pivot table every week. So I will show you two Excel examples to help you understand how to use pivot table. I have 10 brands and I have their impression, click, sales, and spend data happen in week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 on their online advertisement. In this flat table, can you see the total number of sales happens for brand 1? Can you see the difference between week 1 and week 2 on their sales number? You can't, it's hard to tell. So I'm going to generate a pivot table to analyze my business. The first things I'm going to do to generate the pivot table is go to Insert tab and click the pivot table. And then I have to select the table or range. Sometimes Excel help me to automatically generate that. If not, you can click here to select your data. The second thing I'm going to choose is whether you're going to store your data in a new worksheet or existing one. I'm going to choose new worksheet because it looks clear. After you have your pivot table builders, you have to consider what should I put in rows box. The rows means the data you wanted to summarize or analyze. I wanted to analyze my brand data, so I'm going to put brands into rows box. Next, you're going to choose the value. Value is the data you're going to look at. Now I am interested in sales data, so I will put sales into values. Now you can see the total sales data for brand 1 to brand 10. Third, you're going to put something in column box if you don't need the comparison sometimes, so you don't have to put anything in columns box or filters box. But now I wanted to see the comparisons between week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, so I'm going to put week into column box. So now I have the sales happens in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 for each of my 10 brands. You see, now the data and the comparison is clear. You can also play around with that. Like for example, I am interested in my spend and I will play around with that and put spend into my value box. I'm interested in my impression. I wanted to compare the impression and I can see that the impression actually increased in week 2 compared to week 1 for my brand 1. There is another cool things you can do is use filter functions. For example, I wanted to see sales by week. So instead of compare the weekly data, I am going to unselect the week from column and put week into filter. Now you have the total number of sales happen in 4 weeks for brand 1 to brand 10. But if I interested in week 1 data, I'm going to filter the week, just like select the week 1. If I'm interested in week 4, I'm going to select week 4 and to see the sales number happen in week 4 for each of the brand. Let's do another example. Sometimes in a business setting, you're going to compare the results between this week and the last week to see if your business improved. So I have the 10 brands, their impression, their click, their sales, and their spend data happened in this week and the last week. Still, to see the comparisons and the summary, I'm going to generate a pivot table. I will select this range of data, go to Insert tab, click Pivot Table, Theme Thing, click OK, and I will put brand into my rows box. Now I am interested in all metrics, sales, spend, impression, clicks. So I'm going to put all the metric into my value box. Third, I wanted to see the comparisons between this week and the last week for all of my metrics. So I'm going to put week into my column box. Now you have the comparison for each of your metrics between this week and the last week. This table look a little bit messy. I'm going to make it look more concise. So I'm going to delete redundant text. To change the text for your field name, you can double click your field name, and I'm going to delete the sum of and just keep the impression. I will do the same thing for all of my 4 metric. Pivot table will also generate the total impressions, sum of the this week data and the last week data for each of your brands. If you need this information, that's fine, but if you don't need that, you can hide that information by selecting them, right click, and click hide. So now I can clearly see the comparisons between this week and the last week for each of my 10 brands. For example, I can see that for impressions drastically decrease for brand 1. So I'm going to find out the reason why. Now you develop your basic skills and understanding on pivot table, but we have more things to learn, such as build pivot table formulas, customize pivot table, and work with pivot chart. We are going to learn more things in the future video.